Welcome to Michelle's Making Coffee, Crafts, Cookies, and Cocktails. If you like what you see, give me a thumbs up, subscribe, and turn on that notification bell. Don't forget to comment and let me know what you like. Hi, good morning. Welcome back. It's time to smell the coffee. Creamer of the day, Cafe Mocha. It's delicious. And for those of you who may not know, today is National App Day. I was talking to a friend of mine asking if he had seen my video, and he goes, oh no, well, I'm gonna watch it when I get home on the computer. And I said, you know there's an app for that, and you can put it on your phone and watch on your phone. And he was like, no, I didn't know that. I'm like, yes, and today's the perfect day with National App Day. Load that YouTube app if you haven't already. So we're gonna get started. We've got some crafts today and cookies. I'm making a mincemeat cookie, which is seasonal. It's the time of year for it, really. And in case you didn't know, the name's a little deceiving. There's no meat in mincemeat nowadays. Now, in the 17th century, when they first started using mincemeat frequently, it was all different kinds of meat thrown together into a pie. But the meat fell out and fruit came in, and it's really apples and raisins. So I invite you to enjoy that if that's your cup of tea. We're going to be cooking those and moving on to some crafts today. Let's make it a great day. Let's get started on our mincemeat drop cookies. You're going to need brown sugar, cinnamon, vanilla, baking soda, salt, butter and shortening, flour, the prepared mincemeat, an egg, and chopped nuts if you prefer. I'll leave the recipe in the description box. You're going to begin by creaming the shortening and butter together until well creamed, and then add the brown sugar and vanilla. Next, add the mincemeat. It has the measurements marked on the jar, and the egg. Cream that all together. The baking soda, salt, and flour should be sifted together. You'll add this to the mixture about a cup at a time. Not everyone likes nuts in our house, so I usually do half the recipe without nuts and half with nuts. These will bake in an oven preheated to 425 for about 10 minutes. And there you have our mincemeat cookies. Our first craft today is a quick, easy, and inexpensive one that's great to do with your kids. You'll need one of these goodie bags. They were $6 for $1 at the Dollar Tree, and an 8x10 canvas. Begin by cutting the bag in half. Then place it on your canvas and decide how you want the design to fit. I really just wanted the Merry Christmas and the truck, so I trimmed it down accordingly. Next, you're going to coat the canvas in Mod Podge and place the trimmed bag on the canvas. Smooth out all the wrinkles and get the air bubbles out, and then you'll coat the whole thing with Mod Podge again. You may have already noticed I do like my glitter, so I decided to sprinkle some very fine white glitter on. That gives it a little bit of a snowy effect, and it helped conceal the edges of the bag. Next, I added some greenery, a red bow, and a couple of pine cones that I had in my craft stash. And there you have it. It's our finished sign, a cute little sign for less than $2. Our next craft is a mesh ribbon wall hanging. You'll need 2 of the candy cane wreath forms and 1 of the round wreath forms, all from the Dollar Tree, of course. The J and the O are self-explanatory, but for the Y, we'll have to cut the wreath. It's a little tough to snip with these wire cutters, but I managed to get it done. Take the piece you cut off and attach it at the bottom of the U shape, forming the letter Y. Attach it with a chenille wire tie. You'll need about 8 rolls of the deco mesh from the Dollar Tree. I used black and white, but you could really use any color that matches your decor, or even go with one solid color. You'll cut the mesh in 6 to 8 inch strips. It doesn't have to be precise, but this is a little tedious, so you might want to sit down and watch a movie while you're doing it. You see the mesh curls up on itself? Well, that's a really good thing because we're going to curl it up and cinch it in the middle with one of the chenille wire ties. I used half of a chenille stick for each curl. That left me enough of a tail that I could attach it to the frame. And we're going to do this to completely cover the J and the Y. I'll show you what we do here at the end of the Y. To prevent the curls from just sliding off the end of the Y, I use my wire trimmers to curl the ends up. Once I did that, I was able to slide the mesh curls down a little bit to the end of the wreath. And then I applied some hot glue on each leg of it to secure it again. Next, I wrapped the circular wreath with microfiber mop pads. They're white, fluffy, very messy when you trim them, but available at the Dollar Tree. I cut each mop pad in half and wrapped them around the wreath, hot gluing them in places. I used the clamps to hold them in place while the glue dried and to protect my fingers from that hot glue. I used the red glitter ribbon from the Dollar Tree to make a simple loop bow. You make a loop, and when you got to your thumb, twist the ribbon and loop it back the other direction. I did 3 loops on each side. Then I took the strand that had started the bow and folded it around to make the center of the bow. Holding that all tight, I slipped the wire tie through, but before cinching that, I added the tail. Every good bow needs a good fluffing, so pull out those loops and fluff it up. Dovetail your ends to give it a polished look. I hot glued the bow to the wreath and then twisted the tails a little and gave a little dab of hot glue to keep that in place. And there you have it, our Deco Mesh Joy wall hanging. Our next project is going to be a wreath made from the rim of an old dish drain. For our wreath form, I cut off the rim of a dish drain. It was an old dish drain, and actually my son cut it off for me. He had to use a little grinder to get it off, but it was the perfect rectangular shape to make this wreath. The ribbon I got at Hobby Lobby, 50% off, and it's a huge roll that I'm sure is going to last me a very long time. Wrap the ribbon around the wreath and put some dabs of hot glue along the way just to hold it in place. When you get to the end, fold the ribbon on itself and then hot glue it down. Next, I made that same kind of loop bow out of the ribbon, and I used a chenille wire stick to tie this one together. And I added a tail to it before tying it and then secured it all to the center at the top of the wreath. Don't forget to dovetail your ends. It gives the ribbon such a nice look. Our family name begins with a B, and I had this letter, although I've seen them at Hobby Lobby and other craft stores, and I think it's just a couple of dollars. I hung it from a ribbon in the center of the wreath, hanging it kind of low so that the bow won't cover it up. Before attaching the bow, I wanted to add some additional embellishments to each side. You might remember that little curly cue from our snowman head project in my first video. I began by adding some greenery sprigs. Again, these were things I had in my stash already. And to that, I added a curly cue on each side after attaching the bow. But first some greenery, and then some additional plant leaves that were off of a twig I'd gotten at Walmart. And hot glued them all down. I added a chenille stick around the stem of the greenery just to give it a little additional support because that wire frame is so thin and it's just ribbon that's wrapped around it. I realized that I had the tail from the beginning of the bow, and then I added an additional tail, that was only 3 strands. So I took another piece of ribbon and hot glued it in so that there'd be 2 tails on each side of the wreath. And there you have it, a very simple wreath, but I think it's colorful and nice for any time of the year, actually, and looks great on our red door. Well, that's it for this week, folks. Thank you so much for joining me. If you haven't already subscribed, please do so. I'm trying to grow the channel, and that'll really help. I appreciate it. Next week, we've got a couple more Christmas crafts to come, and then we'll be moving on to some farmhouse winter decor. So I hope you'll be hanging out with me every Friday. In the meanwhile, make it a great week, and don't forget to stop and smell the coffee. Here's a sneak peek at one of next week's crafts.